Joining us every Tuesday at this time, the big man on campus, Jeff Nadu. Also, big man on basketball, the podcast. Talking college basketball and the NBA. A lot of stuff to get to with Jeff as we do each and every Tuesday at this time. And as all guests, he appears on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline at Jeff Nadu on Twitter. Jeff, how you doing on this Tuesday?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good. So before we get to any of the specific odds and stuff, one of my big questions I had from you, because you're doing an incredible job at the Big Man on Basketball podcast, I want to know from you, a few weeks into the season now, has there been anything that's really stood out to you with the college basketball games, the teams, or anything that really has maybe surprised you or maybe made you kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit?
Yeah, I would say the shooting. If you look at, when you're looking at teams, when you're looking at three-point shooting, I mean, it is really down around college basketball. Really, I kind of rank a team, if they shoot 35% or better, that's something that I kind of, I would consider you a good three-point shooting team. I mean, to be honest with you guys, there's just not a lot of teams doing that. I mean, just everywhere you look, teams just can't shoot the basketball. And I think that has a lot to just do with the overall optics and the fact that there's no fans and all that sort of thing. But that's something that I've noticed. I mean, there's a lot of teams that aren't shooting. I'm talking about 200 teams that aren't shooting the ball over 35%. So yeah, that's something that definitely stuck out to me, is just the lack of long distance shooting.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty wild. And I just want to throw this out there. About a year or two ago, it's funny how this goes full circle. I actually found you on YouTube just doing your standard college basketball picks on the YouTube channel, and I was following you since then, and then I land this job, and it's just crazy how everything comes together. But I've been following you for a bit. Love your college basketball takes. You put up a Periscope today, actually, of some Tuesday matchups. So I'll leave it open-ended. What do you like about today?
I appreciate the kind words, man. Yeah, I get people all the time. Hey, I used to see you here, I used to see you there. So yeah, I'm glad to see that I have a few fans out there. But yeah, as far as the card today, there's a lot of good spots out there. I think tonight is kind of a bounce back effort for a lot of teams. You look at namely, two of the bigger games on the card. You look at a team like Virginia Tech. They're off a 20-point loss to Penn State, a game that they just didn't score the basketball in. It was just one of those games where you just didn't play real well. First loss of the season. I expect a nice bounce-back effort here against a team in Clemson that is playing really well. They're 5-0 against the number. A lot of people starting to buy into Clemson. But I have some worries. This is a team that I think will struggle to score the basketball this year. They turn the ball over a lot. They don't really organically score. And what I mean by organically score, they don't get to the foul line. They make a lot of mistakes. They're not a good shooting team. They don't steal the basketball and use transition opportunities. So, yeah, I think this is a good spot. The sharp gamblers, people that are out there that know what they're doing, a lot of people like Virginia Tech tonight. It's a good spot. It's a spot that I look for, kind of fading what I think a lot of people are going to look at and kind of go the other way. I think you see a good bounce-back effort from them tonight. I also look at Illinois, Minnesota, and I see a team in Illinois that, didn't play well the other night against Missouri and still had a shot to win the game on last shot. This is a team that, missed a lot of free throws. They had a bad flagrant foul call late in the game that really kind of changed the outcome. I expect a bounce-back effort from them tonight. You look at first game in conference play, they're at home, and they get Minnesota, who, guys, has not played anybody. I mean, this team is beaten up on a lot of bad teams. The only good team they faced, Boston College, they beat in overtime. Gave up 80 in that game. Illinois is a much better team than Boston College. I think Illinois takes some frustration out tonight on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
I know we're starting getting closer and closer to the full conference schedules for a lot of these teams. And I know you talk a lot about the different lines, different things on the podcast. I don't want to give away too much what's on the pod, but I do want to ask you your opinion about this whole thing with Mike Krzyzewski and Duke, this whole thing where he's like, they canceled the out-of-conference games, the Alabama coach calling them out. What is your perspective on all that?
I think it's weak. I mean, he's weak. He's been weak for a long time. That's his MO anymore, making excuses about why he can and can't do things. Look, the truth of the matter is, and I might make an enemy or two by saying this, but over the last 15 years, Mike Krzyzewski's been one of the most overrated coaches in the country. It's just that simple. The talent he's gotten, the limited abilities of certain teams that he's had that he hasn't been able to coach. On the court, he's not a terrific coach. He doesn't do anything that's any different from anyone else. He's luckily always gets really good players, and that's a lot to do with coaching. But I think it's weak. If he were 4-0 or 5-0 and he didn't almost lose to Coppin State and got beat up by Illinois, if that things didn't happen, you wouldn't have heard from Mike Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski's all about himself. He doesn't care about the players. He doesn't care about anyone. He cares about winning. This whole excuse that we can't play, it's because he's not playing. He's not coaching well, and they're not playing well. That's the only reason he said it.
Just to follow up on that, do you think that maybe his time with USA Basketball has maybe diluted him and maybe made him a little big for his own head?
Of course. He's luckily, look, when you get the best players every year, it's not, and when you kind of get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you look at case in point, a guy like Dick Vitale, who's a big mouthpiece in this business, that's his boy. In his eyes, coach can't do anything wrong, but Mike Krzyzewski's done the same things everyone else does. He's just on a platform and has the USA Basketball connections and has kind of the big wig connections, and nothing really happens. But the truth of the matter is, he struck out a lot lately, and he's had some championship teams, but he should have a lot more to show for it from what he has. He's a complainer at this point. He makes excuses, and I think a lot of that has to do with his success for sure.
I want to get your thoughts on Luka Garza to this point. This guy's unbelievable. Must-watch television. Seriously, every time I know Iowa's on, I got to tune in to watch the kid play. So, what do you think about the kid so far this season? He's averaging almost 30 points per game.
Yeah, he's been very good. You never take away nothing that Luka's done so far. I don't want to do this, but look, I speak in realistic fact. The kid's terrific. I'll never tell you he's not, but the level of competition has been laughable. I mean, they don't play anybody. I mean, for anyone who wants to call out North Carolina, okay, that was a good performance. But if you go back to that game, Luka didn't actually play that well. They made 17 threes, and that's why they won by 13. If you look at his box score, it wasn't anything impressive. Look at every other game he's played. It's been against absolute nobodies. It's laughable how bad defensively Southern is. West Illinois, they're playing with 11 new players and a brand new coach. Northern Illinois is one of the worst teams in the country. Iowa State, they're the worst Big 12 team in the country. I'm not going to knock Luka Garza. He's a very good player, but look, if he dominates Gonzaga, I'll be the guy to tell you I didn't tell you he would. I don't think he will. I've had people in my inbox calling me names all week because I don't think he's a first-round talent. He isn't. He's a guy that will likely not get drafted, and that's because his game translates to college, but it does not translate to the next level. And like I said, I'll give him a lot of respect. He's a terrific player, but the level of competition he's faced is poor.
Jeff Nadu joining us on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. Big Man on Campus. Don't forget, subscribe, download the Big Man on Basketball podcast and your Monday podcast. At the end, you had those NBA futures, Jeff. You got me a little juiced for the NBA season. I want to get some of your thoughts on some of these. You mentioned on the podcast that you believe the Heat are the best team in the Eastern Conference. I thought that was interesting because I feel like a lot of people are salivating over the Nets, even though we still haven't seen them play yet. Giannis still hasn't even gotten to the conference, out of the conference finals to the NBA finals. But this Miami Heat team, what is it you like so much about them?
I just look at them and I don't see many flaws. I think that defensively they're very good. Now, I will say one of the knocks I had was not being able to retain Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is a very good defender. We'll see if, a guy like Iguodala could be that. But Jimmy Butler, we know he can defend. They bring in Avery Bradley. I just look at what they have. They have the great coach. They have a star. Adebayo is turning into a star himself. Same with Tyler Hero. I trust them at the point guard position with Dragic. And look, as I said, if you can spot a flaw in this team, I'd like to hear it. When you look at Brooklyn, I think they're right there as well. The problem that I think you have with Brooklyn is, there's only one basketball. Hopefully they can kind of get that all figured out by the end and everything's good. If they can play defense like they played the last 2 years, everything's going to be fine. But here's the issue Brooklyn has. Their point guard is a complete lunatic. It's just that simple. Everywhere he goes, it is an issue. Something happens with this guy. There's always some sort of ego with Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant's not exactly the most stable guy off the court either at times with some of the things he does. Still the best scorer in the NBA and a guy that is very good, but he's been injury ridden as well. So I worry a little bit there. Is there too many kind of egos on one team? And I don't know if they really have a coach with a strong personality that can kind of diffuse those sorts of situations. So, I think the East is obviously really good. For me, it's very simple. The teams that can actually win this conference are the Heat, the Nets, the Raptors, the Celtics, the Bucks. That's it.
Well, you left one out there, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers. So you claim 5th or 6th seed or so. Why do you think that?
I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I'd like to hear where, and I'm not saying you think I'm wrong.
No, I got you. I understand.
All the fans that are out there, I know that when you're a fan, you have to become this delusional being where you agree with everything they do. Look, the truth of the matter is they don't do a lot of things well. Okay, look at this team, and let's really be honest with ourselves. Ben Simmons and Embiid cannot play together. Just because you get another coach. To say you don't care that he can't shoot is laughable. I mean, that is the dumbest thing I've heard. They really don't have a point guard outside of Simmons, and if they play him in another position, who's the point guard in this team? Danny Green's coming off the worst season of his career. He's getting up there in age. Seth Curry only plays about 25 minutes. He's definitely a good player, but I'll be real. I mean, losing Josh Richardson hurts defensively, but he's a defensive player. That's about it. Tobias Harris is the worst contract in the history of this team and is not a max deal type of guy. And you have a guy in Joel Embiid who not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times has failed to deliver when it matters most. There's just not a lot to like here. And if you can actually make a competitive argument that they're better than the teams I mentioned, I'd like to hear it. Until then, I think they're no better than they were. And I don't mean to be negative, but if I said anything wrong, I'd like to hear it.
No, I agree with you completely. The way I view it is, it makes more sense from a spacing standpoint, so it will be more entertaining than last year. But when I look at this roster and I look at everybody from top to bottom, you're still missing something when it comes to legitimately going to win a title. So I think it'll be more entertaining because on paper, at least, it makes more sense. But I don't think that they can compete for an actual championship either.
And that's the problem you have. You made a very good point. We still have the same question. Who takes a shot at the end of the game on this team? I mean, I guess they're hoping like Maxey works out. And look, Maxey could work out. He's kind of that water bug kind of player that can kind of drop 20 on you quickly. I guess they're hoping he's like a Lou Williams type of player. But, I mean, you're putting a lot of stock in a player that was very inconsistent at Kentucky. So I agree with your points there, but there's still not a player on this team that can go get you a bucket. And you're putting a lot of stock in 2 guys that can't play together and are generally injured.
Jeff Nadu, Big Man on Campus, Barstool Sports. Don't forget to check out the Big Man on Basketball podcast. Subscribe, download. Jeff, before we let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't get your early thoughts on the college football slate. First of all, Week 16 is turning out to be the most ridiculous thing in the world now that the Big Ten has already had 2 of their games this week yanked off the schedule because of COVID protocols. Do you have any early thoughts on some of the games for college football this weekend?
Yeah, I told Mike, and I'll kind of tell you guys the same thing. I mean, I've definitely pulled back on how much I'm betting. I'm not a high volume guy as it is. One game that I do like though, Boise State, San Jose State. I'm pretty high on this total. I actually bet it a couple of weeks ago, and it got canceled the day of. But they're back on the schedule this week. I don't believe in San Jose State's defense. I don't. I know they're ranked high, and they've played really well. But this is a different style of passing attack that you're going to deal with. Boise State is very good through the air. They've got plenty of weapons. I think they're going to test the defense, and I think San Jose's going to break here sooner or later. When you look at Boise, I don't know that they're real good in the secondary either. Nick Starkel's actually played very well for San Jose. And look, shout out to the Spartans. They're 6-0. A lot of people don't really see that. Brent Brennan's done a great job out there with San Jose State. Both these teams have weapons, and one thing I love about these 2 teams, guys, they have both electric returners. These guys get in the right spot. They give you good field position. Shamar Garrett for San Jose State's terrific. He had a touchdown last week. There's guys all over the place that can create field position, kind of change the thought on a total. Total, sometimes you need something quick to happen, and if you can get one in this game, the total is only 54.5. I would obviously check your weather situation, but if you get a clear bill of health on the weather, this actually might be a pretty large play for me. Responsibly, I like this play.
To get more from Jeff, make sure you check out the Big Man on Basketball podcast, and Jeff will be back with Mike Gill for Saturday's Sports Bash Best of Hour. They open up the Best of Hour each and every Saturday. They run down the whole college basketball, college football slate that day. Also, follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. As all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Jeff, appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, guys. You did great. Love talking to you. Appreciate it.